Oliveira has been an absolute workhorse, by the way, and deserves credit for it. 14th UFC start, 9-3 with a no contest, so the results have been there as well. Only one loss for Cowboy spanning his last 8. And, of course, the Gunnar Nelson layoff dates to July 2017. 2 of his 3 UFC losses were in his only 2 main events against Rick Story and most recently Santiago Ponzinibbio. 3-round fight here, Ken Flo. Gunnar Nelson, Cowboy Oliveira. Are you going to pick against Gunny in Ryan Hall's living room? You can't do that.
No, I cannot. Listen, I'm going to go with Goonie Nelson. Have you seen a picture of this guy recently?
I
guy
know,
looks
bro. Doesn't look like the picture we're seeing in front of us right now, I'll tell you that.
Dude, he looks like he's ready to rock. He looks like an absolute savage. Now, Alex Oliveira is a savage as well. I think he's another one of those guys that when things get nasty, he's going to be right there trying to kill you. I think he's very dangerous, especially in the clinch. He hits very hard, has very dangerous knees. But I think Gunnar Nelson's advantage on the ground is just going to be too great. I think Gunny takes him down, gets position, and gets a submission on Oliveira.
And in terms of the physical transformation, if you're watching us on FoxSports.com or on YouTube, you saw an old graphic of Gunnar Nelson for Kenny's pick and for Frank's pick. But, man, you should see him. Just Google Gunnar Nelson and see the type of shape he's in and some of the muscle mass that he has added in advance of this one, and probably needs it, taking on one of the more physically imposing welterweights in the division in Alex Oliveira. All right, co-main event for the vacant UFC Women's Flyweight Championship of the World. Valentina Shevchenko, minus 330, entrenched as the favorite against Joanna Jedrejczyk, the plus 250 underdog. She'll try to become the first woman to win UFC titles in 2 different divisions. Enormous fight here, Frank. We need to know who wins it and how do they get it done.
So I'm actually really excited about this fight. My wife is from Poland, and we've been following Joanna's career for a super long time. And my wife is absolutely enthralled with Joanna. Unfortunately, though, I don't think she's going to be happy with me after I make my pick because, look, Valentina's been wanting this belt. She's been eyeing it down for almost, I don't know, I think this is the 3rd time now that she should have been fighting for this belt. So she's been looking for this opportunity. She's been preparing for it all year. Joanna's going up in weight to fight someone who's already beat her 3 times in kickboxing. So I don't know, I'm not a fighter. I can't speak to the mind of what it's like to be beaten 3 times, but I almost feel like Joanna's kind of got a handicap coming into this fight, knowing that Valentina 3 times, I know kickboxing is different than MMA, but I wonder if there's like a mental thing that's going to be in Joanna's head preventing her from, performing at her best. Last point, Joanna knows what it's like to be a champion, whereas Valentina really hasn't had that UFC gold. So I think there might be a little bit more of a fire under Shevchenko. I see Joanna being mobile. I don't think Valentina's going to be able to knock her out or get the submission, but I think it's going to go the distance, and I think at the end, the ref is going to be raising Valentina's hand.
All right, Frank likes Valentina Shevchenko to leave Toronto as the UFC Women's Flyweight Champion. So Jedrejczyk essentially got this fight early September, almost before Nico Montano had left the hospital. The wheels were in motion for this matchup. There's obviously a history there, Kenny. If you're looking for advantages for Jedrejczyk, perhaps it's the UFC Championship experience. This is going to be her 9th UFC title fight. I know Shevchenko's been in a lot of big spots headlining on Fox, but it's only her 2nd championship fight. Vegas has her as a big favorite here. Kenny, how do you see it playing out?
John, I would say not only the championship experience, but also her high-volume style. That's how you're going to beat Valentina Shevchenko. I thought that was the difference in Shevchenko's fight against Amanda Nunes. Nunes was just throwing more strikes. She was staying busier. Joanna Jedrejczyk absolutely has the ability to win this fight if she stays busy and if she gets off to a good start as well. I think the other thing that we're not taking into consideration is the fact that Joanna Jedrejczyk at 125 pounds will bring more strength and more energy in that fight and hopefully bring more confidence as well. Now, for Shevchenko, she does have the mental advantage. Having beaten Joanna, she's experienced that style before, and obviously it was in kickboxing, but are we trying to pretend that Joanna Jedrejczyk is going to try to take this fight to the ground? I don't think so. I do think Shevchenko, while she probably will get off to a slow start, she will heat up and pull off a decision win here against Joanna Jedrejczyk.
Valentina Shevchenko, for my money, one of the best fighters, man or woman, on this UFC roster who has yet to realize the UFC championship, and a lot of people think that she will end that drought and get it done this weekend. All right, Frank, finally, main event for the UFC Featherweight Championship, about as close as can be on paper. Max Holloway, Brian Ortega, pick'em fight according to us, -115 on both sides. Who wins the UFC Featherweight Championship fight, and how do they get it done?
This is a super crazy fight, man. I've been so excited to see this go down for so long now, and now they're finally going to do it, hoping that Max actually, makes it to the scale, and we get to see this on Saturday. Fingers crossed, knock on wood, doing all of that shit to make sure that we get to see this go down. Really, man, I think it's a coin flip. I think that if you say you know what's going to happen in this fight, you're wrong. But it's going to be one of those things where afterwards, in hindsight, when we look back at it, we're going to be like, oh yeah, duh, like that made sense, kind of like with Conor and Khabib. So with Max's UFC, or not, with Max's championship reign at featherweight, you think about who he's fought, and that's Jose Aldo, that's had his soul removed by Conor McGregor. Maybe not. He's had some promising performances after that Conor fight, but I think that Max really hasn't been tried to the extent of Brian Ortega. And similarly, Ortega hasn't really been tried to the point of a Max Holloway. They both bring amazing techniques and skills to the octagon, and honestly, I don't feel good about this pick, but in every single time that Ortega stepped into that cage, I've doubted him, and I didn't think he'd be able to do it. I think Max Holloway's an amazing champion. I think he's a great person, but I think that Ortega's going to get it done in the second round. Submission victory, Brian Ortega.
All right, Frank Ardito going with Brian Ortega by round 2 submission. Frank, good stuff, man. Appreciate you listening. Thanks for your time today, sir. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Phil. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Our pleasure. There he is, Frank Ardito, representing Chicago, Illinois. All right, let's get into this a little bit, Ken Flo. Max Holloway, Brian Ortega. I cannot wait to get to Toronto. Holloway has won 12 in a row. I'm a little bit worried about the fight before the fight for Max, right? I'd be lying if I didn't say that I'd have a clearer picture on Friday night. But as for the backdrop on this fight, if you don't know, Brian Ortega was very bothered as to how things went down in July when they were supposed to fight. It was UFC 226, 3 days out, July 4th. Holloway diagnosed with concussion-like symptoms. Fight was canceled, but Jeremy Stevens and others were called to fight Brian Ortega, and Ortega didn't want to accept that fight. And I think in hindsight, you can say that was a wise choice, because not only is he getting a shot here, Kenny, for the undisputed UFC Featherweight Championship, but he has language in the contract now so that if Renato Moicano is the opponent this weekend, he's still competing for that undisputed UFC Championship. All of that being said, Max Holloway hasn't lost a fight in a very long time. We all think it's going to take a special effort to dethrone the champion. Close fight on paper, Ken Flo. How do you have it?
All right, John. So listen, I have been doubting Ortega as well. I think he's an amazing amazing fighter. I think his ability to stay composed throughout a fight is just amazing. And that's probably the best thing that he brings into the octagon on fight night. I do think he has the submission advantage. I do think he probably hits a little bit harder than Max Holloway. But I think as the full package, Max Holloway puts together the better combination. I think Ortega does get hurt sometimes in fights early. I think Holloway, with his experience, he's not going to make those mistakes down the line. I think Holloway wins this by TKO in round 4.
And I think that might end up being a sharp side, right? Because I think that people are going to bet Brian Ortega. I think because of the Frankie Edgar knockout, because of the undefeated record, and because of some concerns about Max Holloway. I wouldn't be surprised to see Brian Ortega actually close as a betting favorite here, even though at least on my side, Holloway is slightly favored right now. But I think that's interesting, and I wouldn't be surprised to see it go Max's way. Very close fight. Can't wait to call it. Can't wait to see it. And very quickly, in terms of this 2008 main event challenge, right? So the punishment is a power hour, right? But I saw how you reacted when Daniel Cormier did a shoey, right? So part of me is inclined to make you do a shoey if you lose, but I'm not going to do that because a power hour is just so much more bang for your buck, right? I want 60 minutes. I don't want you slamming one shoey without spitting it out of your shoe, which is probably very clean, and then the whole punishment's over in a minute. I had to put down a Vegemite sandwich. I think I'm going to milk this into a full power hour.
Honestly, the power hour would be more difficult probably for me. But, man, what a wimp I am on UFC. So did you see that? It just said no to the shoey. I mean, I gotta work on my manly.
Well, Well, the only thing I'd say in your defense is you have, a 9-10-month-old at home. I don't think the pediatrician would be advocating for her father to start drinking out of shoes. Bring a bunch of germs back to Venice. You don't need to be bringing the germs back to Venice.
Oh, God.
May RockyBJJ.com, by the way, still open despite the fact that Ken Flo is on the Beast Coast with Ryan Hall. Send Ryan our best. Yes. My favorite part of the podcast was when Ryan Hall's house cleaner came in behind you, unbeknownst to you, and started dusting off the mantle. That was amazing.
What am I going to do? What
are you going to do? But we've had a lot of technical difficulties today, so we appreciate everybody hanging with us. Hopefully it can all get cleaned up, but we got to get the hell out of here. Ken Flo wants to go to bed, I bet, but got to go train and strategize. A little no-gi with Ryan Hall today, so we wish you all the best with that.